everybody, and welcome back to the Details Podcast. I'm so excited to tell you who we have on the episode today. It is Natalie Kovarik. She is a wife, a mother, a runner, a rancher, content creator, speaker, podcast co-host, and basically everything you touch turns to gold. So thank you for making time to come on the podcast.
Oh, you're so kind. I am so excited. That's always so fun to sit down and chat with you.
Thank you. Well, I just want to start off with the question that everyone wants to know is, are we still trying to fold the fitted sheet?
Yes, always. It is still in a ball. It will never be folded properly. And you know what? I think that's a-okay.
Yeah, it can be there. It is good. Okay. Well, awesome. I typically start off the podcast kind of telling how we've met each other, how our paths have crossed. And I do think it's funny that for two ladies who are living in Nebraska, we cannot find time. Our schedules cannot find time for us to meet in person. We are too busy.
No, I know. I also think it's good though. I think we're honoring, we have things going on. We're honoring boundaries. So yeah, it is a bummer. I wanted to come down to Omaha or have you come to the ranch, but alas, virtual it is.
It's okay. It'll work. I'm in Colorado right now in a hotel, kind of with a janky setup, but we're going to make it work. So, okay, let's see. I have so much I want to talk about, but like I said, we'll talk about how we met. So, I originally started following you on Instagram, and I can't remember how I found you or what led me to find you on Instagram originally. And I'm trying to rack my brain, but I can't remember the exact time or who I found you through or anything.
It was definitely part of the good old days though, because I know it was before Reels. So we are dating ourselves. It was a time ago in Instagram land.
Yes. Anyways, and then when I really got to meet you was when I applied for, you did a rural rooted retreat, which was in Golden, Colorado, and you took applicants and selected people. And then I met up with you in Golden, Colorado and learned all the curriculum that you had to share and all the other amazing ladies there. And then we've just kind of stayed in touch ever since.
Yes, you were part of my first retreat. Is that right?
Yep, the first
Yeah.
one.
Yeah, it feels like ages ago, but yet it also feels like yesterday. Yeah, for a couple years, social media is really cool. It allows you to kind of ebb and flow and grow and obviously pivot and start new things. And it's just such a wonderful tool for entrepreneurs and small businesses. And so as I found myself growing on social media from influencer to craving more, I ended up starting Rural Rooted, as you referred to, which were these 3-day intensive high retreats that were focused on, social media marketing, but for women who were in agriculture, Western culture, and rural living. I had personally attended a retreat, a year and a half prior to that, probably, maybe even 2 years prior to that, that was led by someone. And it was women of all different backgrounds together, which is wonderful. It's always great to get out of your, bubble as you know it, your kind of immediate community. But while I was there, I couldn't help thinking like, gosh, it would be so powerful if I could do something like this with like-minded people from the same background. And so I leaned into it. I was afraid to do it, but I launched it and you applied. And yeah, the rest has been history. It's been really fun to have all the women that came to all the different retreats, see where they've gone, all the different things that they've done, and just have our friendships grow too.
Yeah, for sure. And then I loved when you did kind of the reunion in Nashville like a couple years
Yeah.
later. That was so sweet to meet girls from other retreats too and just connect on a deeper level.
Yep, I'm actually speaking on bravery. I have a keynote coming up this week, and I talk about leaning into risk and using bravery to harvest success. And I talk about Rural Rooted and just how giving those 2 years were to my life. As you said, it just brought so many women together and created so many connections. And I'd like to think not only impacted women individually, but impacted their families and their communities too. So I'm glad that you have such a positive experience with it too, because it really is such a fond period of my life looking back on it.
Good. Yeah, and you're right. It did make so many waves. Like I feel like it touched obviously the women's lives that went there, but it, made repercussions into their lives, their families, their businesses. And I mean, I know I have shared some of the key foundational things like little golden nuggets that I took away with it with other female entrepreneurs in my circle. And so I think just like the web, the spread is so much farther than I'm sure you ever and originally anticipated.
Yeah, that's why everyone listening, you got to be brave. You got to do the thing because it makes a difference.
Yeah. Do it scared, do it tired, do it
Yeah.
unsure. All of the things. Okay, so on the Details podcast, we love to talk about life details, business details, but I always am curious about people's childhood and just how they were brought up and if they were brought up around entrepreneurship or kind of how those early years molded who you are today. And I know a little bit of your story, but I'm going to let you just take full reign.
Yeah, that is such a fun and interesting question. And I feel like for me, I can see both angles of how I was influenced by entrepreneurship, but also kind of wasn't. So I did grow up in agriculture. You mentioned that I'm here in Nebraska with you, but I'm actually a transplant. So I grew up in Southwest Montana, grew up a little ranch kid up north there, and really loved it. I loved growing up on a ranch. Was very much a family operation. I had three older sisters, and my parents were great, very involved on the operation. It's funny because my dad obviously was a rancher, owned our ranch. My mom was a stay-at-home mom. I never say just a stay-at-home mom because that's a very a very big thing to do.
Yeah, it's
But
more than a
she
full
did,
time job.
yeah, yeah, but she never did anything outside of the home. So she never started a side business. I never saw her, I guess, chasing any of her own passions or doing anything, quote unquote, for herself. It was always, focused on the ranch, focused on our family. And so, on one aspect, I don't feel like I was exposed to entrepreneurship at all, just because when you're younger, for me, I just never, I guess, saw ranching as entrepreneurship. But now that I'm older and my husband are ranchers, I absolutely see it as, entrepreneurship, owning a business.
For
It's
sure.
not really, yeah, that much different. So it's funny if you had asked me, years ago, if I'd ever been exposed to it, I would probably say naively and wrongly have said no. But yeah, I was definitely, I mean, my parents were both self-employed, I guess, essentially.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. Obviously, it made some sort of impact on us because I got my professional degree in pharmacy, and I have a sister who got her professional degree in engineering, another one that's a pharmacist, and then one that is got her degree in sonography, so also kind of the medical industry. And 3 out of 4 of us are back on the ranch. 3 out of 4 of us are our own business owners, entrepreneurs. 3 of our husbands, 3 out of 4 are also entrepreneurs owning their own businesses. So it's interesting. I think I don't know what it was, but looking back, there's definitely something that influenced us all to leave, I guess, have the courage, the bravery, whatever it was, confidence to leave those professional degrees we got and chase kind of the world of entrepreneurship.
Yeah. For sure, especially that high of a percentage of you guys doing it. And I mean, just to think about it, I mean, I'm thinking about ranching. You're keeping your own books, you're making your own sales, you're marketing your own product and services. Like you are a fully operational business for sure. So it is wild that you kind of didn't view it as that growing up, more so maybe just a way of life or this is what people did and you didn't necessarily think of it as the standard brick and mortar business that sells maybe quick bag and product based sales, right? Yeah, so cool. Okay, well, I'm starting with like the lighter stuff and then I'm going to go into the pharmacy
Yeah,
thing, but I'm
no.
glad you brought it up so early because I did want to know your journey to pharmacy school and how long, it takes to get that degree and study it and because that's a big undertaking. Anything in the medical field I feel like has so much more education than most fields.
Yep. So pharmacy school is really neat, at least when I was in the scholastic educational system, I guess. You do not need a degree to apply to pharmacy school. You have to meet all the requirements and you can apply. A lot of people do get an undergraduate degree and then go ahead and apply to pharmacy school, but you don't have to. So I took the route of not. I was like, if I
Yeah.
don't have to get a degree, by golly, I am not going to. So I did 3 years of undergraduate, got all my prerequisites, applied to pharmacy school, was accepted, and then pharmacy school is 4 years total. So I did 7 years of college for my degree.
Amazing. And where was pharmacy school at for you? Was it in Montana?
It was. I went to Montana. Yep. There is only one pharmacy school in Montana. It's University of Montana. It is my dad's nemesis of a school. So he actually sent 2 daughters there. for pharmacy school, which is funny because he is a Montana State fan, and we ended up going to University of Montana. But yeah, I loved it. It's a really cool. It's in Missoula, Montana, which is a really cool kind of outdoor community. It's a very cool college town. So I really loved my time there. I really loved the pharmacy school. We had really great teachers, and I really loved actually my pharmacy classmates too. It's essentially like high school all over again. I mean, you're with the same. My pharmacy class was 65 in size. And so you're with the same 65 people for 4 years, essentially. I mean, our last year is rotation, so you don't see them as much anymore. But yeah, it was really like freshman, sophomore, junior. You had classmen above you that you knew, you had
Yeah.
classmen coming in below you. And I really lucked out because I really did get along with so much and so many people in my pharmacy class and just have really good friendships with so many of them.
That's really sweet. I didn't know that it was such a small class size. 60 is really nice,
Uh-huh.
and it's actually really similar to the interior design program because there was 30. Well, it's kind of a weed out program for freshman and sophomore, but then you have to reapply to get in the junior year, and they accept 30 to the hospitality interior design studio and 30 to the healthcare studio. So again, it was just 60 people, and so it was close and intimate like that too. And I love that. I never thought of it like a high school experience, like you're
Hmm.
saying, but it is similar. Well, not for me. My high school graduating class had like over 600 people, so my college was
Yeah.
even more intimate than that, I guess.
Yeah, I graduated with a high school class of like 32. So for me, that's why I was like, oh, it's like high school again, kind of, except for I enjoyed it more, obviously, than high
Awesome.
school.
That's like my gym class. And but my husband went to a really, really small town school in Nebraska, and he same thing, like in the
Yep,
30s. It's wild.
it is wild.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Well, I just want to bring out something that you and I recently texted about because it shook me to my core. And I immediately texted you when I saw Post Malone's Austin Post fashion show in France. And I am not a fashion girly. Like, I don't ever claim to be cutting edge fashionista, but I have long been obsessed with French architecture and all the different styles that it went through. And when I saw the juxtaposition of like Americana workwear in a French neoclassical setting, my mind was blown. And I didn't know who to text, but I was like, you are a Posty fan. So I'm like, I need to know Natalie's thoughts on this.
Yeah, we actually covered this on the podcast, my podcast.
Did you?
Well, I don't know when this airs, sometime in, let's see, September.
Okay.
And it was fun to talk about. It was interesting because there was actually a lot of mixed reviews on this whole rollout, him having a fashion line, it being in Paris. And yeah, we got into it a little bit. I shared my opinions. I agree. I think it was really exciting. I am a Posty fan. I guess I should preface that conversation with that. So I'm always a little bit biased. I mean, my rose tinted glasses always favor, Posty's way.
Hmm.
So yeah, it was really neat, I think, as you alluded to see Western culture continue to trend and I guess make momentum and, have a place in, this was like outside of Paris, like a little bit before like the main Paris Fashion Week, I believe. So
Yeah.
it wasn't like the main event, but it still had a place. And it was interesting. I liked what he rolled out. I liked his design, but there was a lot of people who thought it was really boring. Wish they would have seen more.
Mm.
And I can understand that. It's kind of what I shared on the podcast was I felt like Post Malone was kind of damned if he did and damned if he didn't, because
Hmm.
the unfortunate thing about Western culture is we can protect heritage a lot. So I think if he had gone too far out of the box, people really would have slammed him for getting into cosplay and not representing
Mm.
authentic Western wear. And then in this case, he kind of stayed, a little bit more in the box and true to what you would classically think of as Western culture with a little bit of, added zhuzh.
Yeah.
And he kind of got still flack for, it being boring and wanting to see more because it is Paris Fashion Week. So
Hmm.
I will say I loved his name. I loved what he named the clothing line. And I think it's fun as a Posty fan. It's just fun to continue to see him embrace the Western culture in different ways and show up in different ways and kind of put his Post Malone stamp on it all.
Yeah, and I didn't know this. I went to the hair salon recently, and she's the one who told me his name is actually Austin. Like, that's his
Yeah, it
actual
is.
name. And I was like,
Yep.
I had no idea. Girl had no clue. No clue. But okay, another like hot take on this is I looked at it as full picture. Like, I wasn't necessarily only looking at the apparel, which I know a lot of people were. I was looking at almost as like composition, like each still frame or each clip as like a full compositional art piece. And so I love the juxtaposition of setting and content. But then after I started seeing some more media statements come out and more people kind of share their thoughts on it, then I was kind of reminded of people like Understated Leather, who has already kind of been working in this Western fashion space for a decade. And I think the owner's name is Jennifer. I will edit this if it's wrong, but I mean, it is hard to, and I think this happens in all industries, when like someone has been grinding and it's their passion and they've been putting something out for years and years, if not decades. And then one famous person does it and they literally get featured by every magazine and it's praised and it's new and revolutionary. And then other people are like, wait, it's not, it is cool, but other people have been doing it and it like might be my entire life, where it's Posty's new side hustle. So I do see both sides. I didn't at first, but as I like read more and kind of thought about it from some other people's perspective in the industry, I was like, oh, I could see how that could be taken a certain way.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, I think that's just the nature of the beast. It's like, don't hate the players, hate the game. And I do think, as you said, that happens in every industry, unfortunately. So it is unfortunate as hard as a lot of those and small businesses, small owners who have, as you said, been, working on that aesthetic for a while or leaning into it and trying to create a space for it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's hard.
Yeah. I think the hope, at least for me, is at the end of the day, is it keeps bringing awareness, shedding light. And then who knows, maybe he would do a collaboration with some of the smaller Western wear brands out there in the future. And that would help, bring eyes or more eyes that weren't on the smaller brands in the future. But I don't know, because he did work with, what was it? I don't know how to pronounce it. Lucchese. How do we say these boots?
Oh, yeah. Lucchese. Yeah, they
Lucchese.
were the
Okay.
boots for him. He's had actually one of my good friends. Her name's Kate. She has two companies. She has Range Revolution, which is like a American regenerative leather line where she makes bags. She actually just launched cowboy boots too. And then she has Havestead Hat Co. And she has made 2 hats for Posty. So yeah, he's definitely not just like knocking off, picking up some random cowboy hat somewhere. I think he really does try and connect with some movers and shakers in the industry. So yeah, as he continues to grow and, really embrace the Western culture and theme, with his life, it'll be interesting to see who he affects and what comes out of it.
For sure. And does he live outside of Austin? Like, because when I first heard Austin Post, I was like, oh, he's going to put up a retail store in Austin. And then my hairdresser told me that was his name and I felt really stupid. But does he live outside of Austin?
No, he actually lives in Utah. Listen to me, I'm just such a Posty freak. He grew up in Texas though, so he has like a very beloved, like just deep love for Texas culture, for the Dallas Cowboys. That's what he's done. He has a Raising Cane's. He's done Raising Cane partnerships and kind of rolled out some like Texas themed ones, Dallas themed ones, in like Cowboys themed ones in Texas, and so all of that comes from his upbringing. But no, now I believe he lives in Utah. And I actually also think he bought, we might cover this on the podcast, but I think he has part ownership of a ranch in Utah too. So yeah, he's got lots going
Cool.
on.
Yeah, because then, I mean, when this came out, then I started sleuthing on him because I'm like, I know nothing, need to know more. And then I saw he was in a Skims campaign doing like camo wear for Skims. And it was like one of the only times in my life when I almost considered buying Skims.
I bought them. It's like, it's a write-off. It's a write-off. It's fine.
Just wear it on the podcast, wear it on Instagram, just take a photo shoot in it. Oh my gosh. Wait, what did you buy?
I haven't unboxed it yet because I've been trying to find the trending reel audio that's like, it's a write-off from Schitt's Creek and I haven't found it. I just haven't taken the time to find it. But I bought the camo hooded sweatshirt and sweatpants. So
love. That's what I was thinking about getting, was either one or the other. But I love that you committed to both. You could just, you could go from lounging to the turkey blind.
Yep.
Oh my gosh. Okay, cool. I hadn't even checked like stock or anything because it seems like it was launched before his whole thing went out, but that's so
I mean,
cool.
I might have set a timer. So I was assured to get something. He also had a recent collaboration with Stanley and he rolled out Post Malone Stanley.
Like the cups?
He did like an old school thermos. I'm trying to think of, he had a couple different things with them and I missed that one. So I was like hell bent on making sure I got the Skims collaboration.
I am such a design nerd that like I don't I don't know much else that's going on in the world besides dine like, I don't own a Stanley Cup. I know people are talking about Stanley Cup crazes and shows, which I wanna talk about shows because I feel like you are on top of the shows. You are always watching all the hot shows, and I never know about anything, but I also don't take the time, and I'm like, "How you do the most." Like, my intro of I was trying to figure out how I can say everything you do in one sentence, and it was hard. I'm like, plus she reads books and the Bible and watches every show on the face of the planet. I'm like, how do you have time for all these shows?
I know, I'm trying to watch less and less. I'm canceling subscriptions and I don't know, I just my husband goes to bed early. He needs a good solid 10 hours is honestly preferable to Luke. Like we will put the kids down together about 7:38, and then he's usually in bed like 8:30 or 8:45. So I feel like I have a good hour to myself every night. And
Nice.
I'll either fill it with reading or TV. Yeah.
That is so nice. I
Hmm.
want to be that. I want to be Luke when I grow up, I've decided.
I know.
Way to go, Luke, though, for prioritizing your sleep, knowing what your body needs, and listening
Yeah.
to it. Ah,
He is early to rise or early to bed. And usually early to rise too. We do like to wake up early, but yeah, he's nestled right in very early, and that's just it's too early for me. If I go to bed that early, I'd wake up at like 3 a.m. And that's just not gonna happen. So yeah, I even if he goes to bed early, I still usually stay up about an hour by myself.
nice. And what time do you guys wake up?
Usually like 5:30, I would say is like our average time. It's very seasonally depending on like darkness outside of, whether Luke wants to get out early or not. So sometimes depending on light of the day, with the different seasons, summer, winter, that'll change. But I would say like 5:30, maybe 6.
Way to go. And are you like dragging, or is your body just ready to get up for the day?
No, I am a morning person. I will say that very much so. I can even remember back in pharmacy school, all of my best testing, like my brain is firing on all cylinders in the morning. I dreaded when we would have evening or afternoon tests because by the end of the day, I'm just kind of shot, done, checked out. So that was always an interesting thing for me of like depending on testing time. So no, I wake up, I'm ready to tackle the day. I'm ready to like get going immediately. I don't even drink caffeine, so I don't even need a coffee pot to like get me going. I just roll out of bed and I am like set, ready to go.
So jealous. I never drank caffeine until I had our son, Wesley, and then he didn't sleep through the night till 18 months. So that was when my husband found these teas that I like, V8 energy teas, like the mango
Yeah.
one. So good. But then I had to like wean off of it for a bit for my headaches, and I'm like sneaking it back in because I just like the mango taste. But like here when I'm traveling, I don't drink caffeine, and then my body gets headaches from missing caffeine. So I'm like trying to wean myself back off. But I never needed it before I had a kid.
Yeah, my husband's addicted to it. He literally needs it the moment he wakes up. So
Needs
we have
it to
very
function.
different things going there for us as well.
That's funny, that's funny. Okay, well, I wanna briefly talk about the 2 shows that you and I have in common, the only 2 shows that I watch, and I mean briefly because you know I can get, like, way too into this, but Secret Lives of Mormon Wives and The
Yep.
Amazing Race. Secret Lives of Mormon Wives starts soon, right? Like, I
I
think
did
it's
not see that.
yeah, season 3 is
Good.
coming, I think November 13th, but Jen and Whitney are on Dancing with the Stars, which is
Yep.
gonna premiere September 16th, and I've never watched Dancing with the Stars, but I'm gonna be the biggest fan for those 2 girls this season.
You go, girl. You're so supportive. I will probably not be working that one into my lineup, but
That is
I'll
okay.
follow along with them online.
Yes. My grandma was always a big fan of Dancing with the Stars,
So
and I
was
lived with her for a
mine.
while, so I'm gonna go, watch it with her on Tuesday nights, so I'm excited
That
for, like,
is
grandma
so
bonding
fun. I love
time.
that so much.
Yeah,
That's so sweet.
and then Amazing Race is starting September 25th. Do you know this? Do you know?
No, I missed that one as well.
It's okay.
But I do love it so much. If I was ever to do a reality TV show, I've always said the one and only one I would ever do is The Amazing Race. I just think I love traveling. I love adventure. I love being challenged. I love a good healthy competition. I mean, it combines all the different things that I just have a love for. So I would absolutely do it. It has been a while though since I've like sat down and actually watched a newer season of it.
Yeah, and I'm, like, fervently addicted, and I agree with you, though. I think it's the only reality show on television that actually sees how well-rounded a person is, because it's not just a physical strength challenge, it's not just a mental challenge. There's also language, navigation without phone, singing, art, dance, like there's makeup challenges, there's kind of like fear factor stuff with like the jumping out of airplanes or bungee jumping. Like there's so many things plus luck that if someone wins the Amazing Race, they're just like a super well-rounded human being. And I think that's like way more bragging rights than being on any reality show that's like, I was the strongest, you know?
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it's hard. You just it also I think it does such an interesting dynamic with relationships and challenges in communication. And so you definitely find the people that you are drawn to. I mean, you do with most reality TV shows, but I don't know. I think there's something about the way you have to like work with whatever partner it is on there with you. And I think it really shows kind of your true personalities because you are put in so many different tests. That, yeah, there's just such an interesting, I think, emotional component to it too.
Yes, I've listened to almost all of the racers' past podcasts, and they say the Amazing Race intentionally creates pressure cooker situations where, like you said, they are just raw reactions to the core of who they are, and you don't have time to like put on a front or this is how I want to respond. It's just, and it is a race, so you're moving at a rapid pace, and so you're just like reacting and on to the next. And I think it creates some really raw and exciting television that also takes people on a trip around the world from their couch and introduces people to cultures and cuisines and activities that they might not have otherwise seen, which I love because I love travel. And I just think the race does such a beautiful job of showing us different people around.
Yeah, hopefully it goes on forever and we can find ourselves on the show someday.
I know. There was, I mean, originally I had heard whispers in some of the podcasts. Season 30 was supposed to be the last season. And they went to like all of Bertram, he's the creator's, his favorite countries and like stayed at his favorite hotels and everything that season because it was supposed to be the last one. But it did really well. So they kept going. And have you heard about the contestants for this season?
Uh-huh.
Oh my gosh, girl, let me tell you. And then we'll move on. It's Big Brother exclusive, and I've never seen
Interesting.
Big Brother. Yeah. So there's mixed anticipation levels and mixed thoughts in the Amazing Race community on this season, but I will say some of my favorite competitors have come from Big Brother, and I didn't know who they were before they were on the race, like Cody and Jessica, Derek and Claire, and I think if anything that I've seen from watching the race this long is like the Big Brother people are very animated. They're usually very
Yeah.
beautiful and they're fierce competitors. So I think it'll be a
Yep.
good season.
Cheers to that.
Okay, so let's see. I cannot wait to find out more about this. You texted me
Oh my gosh.
a little while ago about trying to find an architect for your rustic
I was like,
Canadian
oh no, where are
cabin.
we going?
And I was like, girl, from one friend to another, I don't think you need to hire an architect because you will spend like 3 to 5 to 10 times more money than you need to. And I recommended you finding a drafter. Did you reach out to those two that I sent you, or did you find one you like?
I found someone in Canada. So I took your advice of maybe sticking within countries here and not crossing the border for potential maybe problems that would arise down the road that would you wouldn't foresee. So we found someone in Canada and yeah, we started the initial, paperwork, filling out different things, down payments, all of that to get the ball rolling for our cabin, which is so exciting. Yeah.
Good. Yes, because there's the international building code, but then there's also codes in different countries, and there's different codes in different regions. Like Nebraska, we have some different building codes than California. And so that's why I always think it's really good to find someone where you are on your team just because of their level of experience with whatever the local building authority is.
Yeah, I would never have thought of that. So I'm so happy I texted you and you
Yeah.
guided me in the right direction from the beginning.
Well, I'm just so excited. I love that. Wait, okay, so you don't have running water, internet, all this stuff. Are you adding that or are you keeping it primitive?
So, speaking of reality TV shows that you would join, my husband has always been obsessed with the reality TV show called Alone. I don't know if you've ever heard of that or watched that, but essentially it's where people go out into extreme wilderness and they try and survive alone. I think it's probably, I don't know, just something with, the manliness and the outdoors and
Mm.
I can do all, barbaric things. And my husband has this, I think, deep affinity for I would say the outdoors beyond just even like agriculture, right? I mean, he works in it every single day, but I think at this very like primitive level, he's very drawn to the outdoors. The reason why we ended up in Canada is he actually used to go with his dad all the time. His dad took him every summer when he was growing up. They would go up to Canada, they'd fish. It was always a big part of their lives. They would just go to like an outfitters, so they, just pay to go stay at a place that was already there. It wasn't like my father-in-law had a cabin up there or anything, but it was pretty much a part of their routine. And my husband kept that up in high school. He'd go with buddies. And then in college, he would go with buddies. So it's always been a part of his life. And then when we started having kids and had our family, he started taking our children. And he would always say, gosh, I just wish one day we would have a cabin there. And I would kind of let it roll off my back for a couple of years. And then finally, me being the type I am, I was like, gosh, if you really want something, like you need, like, it's not just going to appear. You better do something about it. Like, I'm so sick of you just saying you want a cabin and then not doing anything. So either like stop wanting a cabin or find a cabin.
Stop bringing
And
this up to me or do it.
yeah. And lo and behold, my husband is the world's best manifester. I swear to you, because about 2 months within me saying that to him, he had found this cabin that was for sale, and it's kind of a big deal because it was on deeded land in Canada, which is not always the case there, and they weren't going to continue a foreign ownership past the end of the year. So he had not only managed to find deeded land that we would be owners of, but he also managed to find it in time before they weren't going to change the legality of it anymore. We quickly jumped on it, and it is backwoods, off the grid, fly-in only. So yeah, there is no running water, there is no bathrooms. It's an outhouse. It's hooked up to solar, so you can get energy, and we can get running water for cooking and stuff. Like the refrigerator's on a generator and a couple different things like that. No, for the most part, it is very, very primitive, and we want to keep it that way. I think we want to honor that very disconnected feeling, that very kind of off the grid feeling. I have some fun ideas for like maybe an outdoor shower that's like connected to propane and a couple different fun things like that. But no, for the most part, we're going to lean into the disconnect and create a place that we can bring our children that is not, reminiscent of everyday culture with internet and technology and just a faster pace. I think we really want to carve out a very intentional kind of raw space to spend our time at.
Yeah, I love that. I love that he went up with his dad and the stars just aligned once you guys were at that point that you were ready to make that move. It's literally like God just was like, "Hey, this is happening. This is the perfect thing for you guys. We're just going to let it roll and make it happen."
Yeah, yeah, it really, like I said, my husband, he has insane manifesting abilities. So I always have to be careful of what I tell him to wish for because it's probably knocking on the line not too far down the road. I better make sure I'm really aligned with it.
My gosh, that's so funny. So are you guys completely demoing what's there and building new, or are you adding on?
Yeah, so we're gonna a combination of both. So it's kind of fun. At first, I wasn't entirely sure if I liked how it was set up, but the way it's set up is almost like summer camp. There's a main building cabin that is, we call it the mess hall, and it is just like lounging, the kitchen, hangout area. There's no bedrooms, obviously no bathrooms on it or anything, but there's no living quarters attached to it. So it's like the main cabin, but it's essentially just, living space, hangout space, and the kitchen. And then there are currently 2 bunkhouses for the sleeping quarters. And so one of those was built in the 90s, and we'll keep that one. That one's obviously fine structurally. One of them was built before that, and I think we'll have to do a little bit of structural upgrade to it as far as like a new roof and a couple different things. But for the most part, it is set up fine as well. So we'll have those 2 cabins, and then we're gonna build a mini cabin for ourselves, kind of like the chateau, for the owners to sleep at. Again, I think that's maybe where I'll put like a fun outdoor shower and kind of I have an idea for like a fun hot tub kind of, deck space or whatever. So we'll kind of zhuzh our cabin up. But so we're building that one new. And then, yeah, we contemplated with the mess hall. It was built in the 50s, so it needs a lot of work. And that was what the last time we went up, that was, we went in there intentionally to look at it or to focus, I guess, on answering that question with our time up there. Do we want to put money into just upgrading that cabin and keeping it as is, or are we going to demolish it and build a new one? And we ultimately decided to demolish it and build a new one. But we're going to keep the same vibes as far as just making it living quarters and instead of sleeping. So it will have the main mess hall, and then we'll have 3 bunkhouses now, which will be nice because 3, probably we could get 3 us and then 2 other families up there with us. So it will house a good amount of people, which will be fun.
Nice. So this is exclusively like family and friends. You're not looking to turning this into another business
No, I
opportunity.
mean, you know me, it's crossed my mind. It's rolled across it a couple times, and I have talked to Luke about it. The really cool thing about Canada, which is not similar in the US, is they really honor, I guess, I don't know if that's the right way to put it, but when they quartered out all of their lakes, and I mean, they have so many lakes that it kind of makes sense, but they were very intentional about either putting like minimal housing on it. So our lake is a very large lake. I don't actually know the size of it for to like compare to people, but it's pretty substantial, and there's only two owners on it. So we have a cabin, and then there's only one other cabin on it, and that is very kind of common for Canada, is to have, I mean, it's not like going to US Lake where it's like house, 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 lake, house, and you just have neighbors everywhere and boats are zipping everywhere. You know, it's not that vibe at all. It is very disconnected. And so, anyway, to answer your question, it was very important to the other cabin that's on our lake that whoever, they were concerned that who bought that would turn it into an outpost and that they would be having traffic coming in and all the time. And so, there's kind of an unwritten agreement that, you know, we won't do that, either, you know, their family or our family. So, you know, to turn it into a business, I think we obviously could do it if we wanted to. But I think my husband has some reservations about like relationships of what that would do to the other owners on the lake. And I just also think he doesn't want to turn into business. But part of me is like, gosh, if we would just like, you know, monetize it for 3 or 4 years, it'd be like a great little pay off the cabin, build a new one, you know, have everything paid for, which sounds, you know, very enticing and nice.
Yeah. I know you're business minded. So I was like, is that in the back of her mind or is this just pure pleasure? No
Yeah.
business. Good.
No,
Good for you.
it's in the back of my mind there, but I don't know if we'll do it.
No, and it seems like just such a beautiful, tranquil, secluded place anyway, that it's like your respite from this business world that we live in.
Yeah. Yeah, it was so nice to go up. I mean, you absolutely get no cell service. So you're disconnected, you're unplugged, which my husband, he wants to change a little bit just because we are business owners back home. You know, we have stuff going on back home, but I just really dread the idea of putting a Starlink up there and having internet access. I'm like, it just really changes the whole experience, I think.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Like some of my happiest places are places where I do lose cell service because I am able to be fully present. And I think it's so true what you said, like as business owners, we're kind of always on, we're kind of always working or at least on call. You kind of have to be, or maybe our brains just do that more or less. So to go to those places, I'm just like thinking too, where I do lose cell service, I cherish it.
Yeah. It's so wild to think that that's how we, you know, at least I did, grew up. You know, that's how our parents, to them, they didn't have to seek that respite. Like you said, it
Hmm.
was just always, it was always there. You know, they didn't have cell phones, they didn't have internet, which is just so wild to think that we grew up partly in that era. And now, you know, now we're trying to find our way back to it.
For sure, for sure. Well, this is the perfect segue into business because as you mentioned, you own multiple businesses. You guys run a ranch, you create content online for that business and your business, and you co-host a highly successful podcast that is also branching out in many different ways too, like TV series. And you guys you're wearing so many hats, doing so many things that I want to start like back when you were a pharmacist and then kind of move our way to modern day, if that's okay. I've kind of at least
Yeah.
structured my
We'll
questions
keep it
that
on a
way.
timeline. That makes sense. Yeah.
Okay. You got married, you left Montana, you came to Nebraska. You guys are a first generation family ranch in the Sandhills. And you guys, I also I want to say that like I know very, very little about ranching only because of my exposure growing up. My cousins and my uncles and my aunts ranched. I mean, they have, Angus cattle, and I go on some like the Nebraska Angus tour with them. But I want to approach this podcast because I know a portion of my listeners won't understand like the ranching terminology. So I want to try to like as we speak through this, like be as basic and explanatory as possible. I don't want us to assume anyone knows everything
For
that
sure.
we're talking about. So you own a ranch and you guys have your own bulls. You sell bulls, yearlings. You sell semen and like that's the genetics part of it, correct?
Yeah, it is. So the beef industry, which most people aren't aware of, but there's kind of some different segments of it, essentially. Again, keeping it very basic talk here. So there is a portion of the beef industry, what most people think of is when you're raising cattle to go, you know, for food at the end of the day. So into restaurants, into grocery stores, like it is cattle that are entering the, you know, food, the beef supply chain. But there's a whole separate portion of the beef industry that is for genetics. So ranchers will raise females and males, so bulls and cows, and then sell those genetics to other ranchers. So essentially, they are raising those animals, again, not to be slaughtered or harvested at the end of the day, but to be purchased by other people within the beef industry so they can have those genetics and then breed them back into their cattle. So,
Can I ask
yes,
a
that,
question?
yes.
Okay, so why is it important to have good genetics? Like, why would someone want to be able to say, hey, I have these really great genetics versus these are going to be turned into food?
Yeah, well, even when you're raising animals to enter the beef supply chain, there's a lot of things that you would want to have positive genetically when you're raising them. So, if you think very simple example, if you think of the mother cow, you want them to have a good udder, you want her to have good feet, you want her to have good disposition, all of those things you can breed into them. A lot, whenever I say this, a lot of people are like, oh, it's like dogs, and so they'll think of like breeding dogs for different traits and different things. And it's kind of the same thing. You can all breed that into cattle. So, there will be ranches that will focus on, our ranch, we love to focus on like maternal performance. So a lot of those things are very important to us. But you can also have ranches that focus on the males, and you can have different things that you want with your bulls, whether it's, calving, what's the birth size of the animal. So there's a lot of different, I guess like pedigree things that you can pay attention to as a rancher that you would want in cattle. It can also be geographically. You can, breed for animals that do better in like weather, different temperatures, different climates, different like topography, like if you're out on like desert versus mountain. So there's a lot of things that when it comes to like breeding an animal, again, even if it does enter the beef supply chain, you want a good mother raising a calf. You want a good bull that can withstand, wherever you're at as a ranch geographically. So all of those play an important role for a rancher. Yeah, when they're raising their herd and expanding and growing the herd.
Beautiful. So when you and your husband got married, he was already working with cattle and you were a
Yes.
pharmacist and you were helping as you could on the ranch, correct?
Yes. So when we got married and I moved down here, we ranch about outside of a town of about 2,000 people. So we're fairly remote. We're about an hour and a half from not your Costco. I'm 3 hours from a Costco, but I'm about an hour and a half from a Target, Walmart, Starbucks, etc. So fairly rural, which I don't mind. And the one nice thing about Nebraska, because Montana, I grew up in a small town too, but I was only about a half an hour from a larger town. So I feel like my small town didn't have some of those things because people just it was easier to commute or go. But our town is like pretty self-sustainable. Like we have our own brewery, we have, two pharmacies, we have a critical access hospital. There's like multiple, like there's all sorts of things in our little town that I feel like a little town of 2,000 people should not have. But it's
There's
like
a
you can
nice
just
pool.
Yes, exactly. There's a amazing community pool. And so anyway, there were opportunities for me to practice as a pharmacist in our community, but at the time when I moved and we got married, there were no job openings. So we had looked at that me going to practice as a pharmacist at the next largest city, what would that commute look like for us? How much time am I spending away from the ranch and the family of, going to a 9 to 5 and then having, a 3 hour commute on top of that. And so we just decided that that was not something we wanted to do. When I moved, yes, I was just kind of on the ranch helping my husband. And then I had launched a direct to consumer beef business, which is actually kind of how I got started in like the whole social media kind of entrepreneurship world, is because I couldn't chose to not practice as a pharmacist and instead chose to fill my time with, something else.
Yeah, okay, so that's good to know. So there was never a point where you had to choose between pharmacy and ranching or pharmacy and content creation or anything like that. So there was never a discussion between you and Luke like, "Oh, we're gonna leave pharmacy behind."
So there was,
Okay.
because while I launched the direct consumer beef business and was kind of on the ranch for the beginning of our marriage, I'm trying to think, maybe it was like 6 months, 9 months after I had moved, a position did open up. So I did end up taking a part-time job at our local hospital and worked there couple days a week off the ranch. At the same time, I continued to be in the beef business, and then the beef business kind of rolled over to just general social media content creation. And that kind of snowballed very quickly for me into a successful option, I guess a successful path I could take. And so, yeah, we did come to an eventual fork in the road where we had to say, I can't do this all. I can't go to the job and work off the ranch and then come home and still have obligations and duties with social media or with the business. And we also like had a baby and just a lot of, things are going on in your life
Yeah,
outside of the two
life.
businesses.
Yeah.
So yeah, there was a point where we had to decide what I was going to do. And Luke actually didn't want me to, he wanted me to stay with pharmacy. He didn't want me to kind of take the risk in entrepreneurship land, but I
My
just
husband was
felt
the
very
same way.
strongly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just felt very strongly that I wanted to. So I ended up shifting away, stepping away from pharmacy and leaning fully into the world of social media.
Good. And then how long did it take for him to see like, "Hey, this is working out. She's doing it. It's good. Like she made the right choice."
Yeah, pretty quickly, honestly. Cuz I had balanced both of them probably longer than I think maybe some people would have. So
How
I
long
didn't
is
step away
that?
from pharmacy um and I guess like then decide to like lean fully into social media. I feel like I had just probably gone too far too long in the world of both.
Mm.
So when I had stepped away, I'd kind of built a solid foundation on a couple different platforms. I'd already been kind of doing brand partnerships. We'd kind of already launched our YouTube. Like the foundations were there for me to kind of just lean all in. And so very quickly I was able to like just take that momentum and just build it even bigger.
Way to go. And you are incredibly business minded. Like the few conversations that you and I have had together business wise, I mean, one at Rural Rooted and then like a few since, you are very sharp when it comes to business. Is that something that you learned from your dad or that you learned from the course you did out in Golden, Colorado? Or have you been taking other like business entrepreneurship courses, or do you have a business mentor or someone you ask questions to who's like been doing business longer than you? How have you kind of come about your business acumen?
Yeah, I don't know.
Trial and
It's so
error.
kind of you to say that. Thank you first for honoring that in me. It is nice to hear because I never, going back to when you asked, about my childhood, I was not one of those kids that, people have stories of being like, I was slinging lemonade when I was 5 and I was, collecting rocks and selling them to my classmates. Like that was not me. I just was not in my mind born an entrepreneur. Like it wasn't something that I was younger and was like, I'm going to be my own business owner, I'm going to do my own thing. I was actually kind of drawn to the 9 to 5, like that stability. I think maybe it was growing up in agriculture, was something that was dependent and not changing was kind of alluring to me.
Mm.
So yeah, I don't know where it comes from because I do feel like it's very natural for me. I almost feel like I can get carried away in it where I have to be like, okay, stop the business mindset and just like have a normal viewpoint on this as, not business numbers oriented. And so I don't know where, I don't know if my dad is like that and I've just never picked up on it. When you're younger, maybe you don't notice those things. Maybe my grandpa was very he did a lot of big things in the cattle industry, my dad's dad, and so maybe a little bit, I was so young, I don't remember him or view, you don't get to view your grandparent, I think, through the lens of like a business owner or anything like that. And so
Mm.
I like to think maybe it came from him too, just knowing kind of the risk taker and leader he was in the industry. So I'm sure it's genetically there somewhere. And then, yeah, I think I married someone that fosters it instead of tries to. And I think that
Mm.
also has made a difference. That Luke really allows me to kind of, I don't know, be a think tank and take different risks and I guess like be creative with, how I want to show up in the world and what we want to create. He's not limiting in that aspect. He's very like encouraging of different things. And I think that has also played a major role.
Love that. Do you bounce business ideas off of him and like he your sounding board?
Yeah, very much so. I think it's, I always say that my husband is my, personal compatible meant to be person, but also business minded. So like personally and professionally, we just fit together so well. And so yeah, it is really fun to kind of dream with him and bounce ideas off of each other of, what could we do? What should we do? I would say he's also very business mindset, which is fun to have in a relationship. So yeah, we're definitely always like dreaming together of different things we could do for sure.
Love, love. And this is one thing I forgot to ask. And I ask this of all like the people that come on and talk business. We love to talk about like how the businesses operate. Cause a lot of times people think it's just one person doing everything, but there's usually really good processes, systems, or a team, even a small team of people that make it all happen. So what does that look like for the ranch? Sorry, my computer's making noises. What does that look like for the ranch? I know on your website it says, like we're first generation, family of 5 doing the thing in the Nebraska Sandhills. But I mean, part-time, full-time virtual assistants, like how many people are part of your operation and what does that kind of look like?
Yep. So the day to day, as far as like what people would typically think of like ranch work, is my husband. And then we have one main employee. He actually interned for us between his junior and senior year at UNL. And so he's with that summer. He did a summer internship with us and we just absolutely fell in love with him. He is such a phenomenal person. And he is also just very passionate and intelligent about the beef industry. And so we told him, when you go back and you graduate, we don't know what you're doing, but if you ever want to come back to our ranch, even as a placeholder, like if you just don't know what to do after graduation and you need a job, we would absolutely hands down hire you. A lot of people might not know this, but employment is definitely a challenge in the agriculture industry. It's interesting because it is, it's a very capital intensive business, right? Going back to, you're like, you guys are business owners, you're doing all these things. It's like, yeah. And usually ranches are like multi-million dollar enterprises. There's a lot of cash flow coming in and a lot of cash flow going out. Like it takes a lot to run a ranch, a farm. And so anyway, it can be a challenge for an ownership standpoint. You can put in the hard hours and the hard work because essentially at the end of the day, you are owning, right, all those assets. You own the land, you own the animals, etc.
Mhm.
But it can be challenged to get someone else to want to show up 365 days a year in the blistering, Nebraska heat and the cold winter, and to deal with all the challenges of the agriculture industry, whether it's from a physical standpoint or a mental standpoint, when they aren't, right, owners at the end of the day. They're just showing up as that is their job. And so employment can be really hard because you're just asking a lot of people to care for something that, again, usually goes to the owner's children, right? Like not the employee that's maybe been there for 40 years. Anyway, long story short, when you get in a good employee or someone that is interested in the agriculture industry like that, you do anything to keep them. So we said, Mitch, his name's Mitch, if you want to come back, you will always have a place on this operation. We respect you and would love, to have you on our operation. And lo and behold, he wanted to come back. So he has been with us for this, I think it'll be his third year with us now. And we feel so blessed. He compliments my husband so well. He's very meticulous. My husband is not. And so they work really well together on the ranch. And so it's those two doing the day-to-day ranching. As we have started, when you are on the beef side of the industry that's growing beef for food, a lot of times people just sell a very conventional way, which is at like a local sale barn. You don't have to advertise, you don't have to market, like you don't really need to do any sort of that side of marketing for your business. You just go to the sale barn and that's kind of it. When you enter into the registered side, which is the genetic side, the seed stock side of the industry, you very much so are a brand and you're very much so marketing your brand. And if you do not get buyers to come to your bull sale and your bulls are not going to sell. So you have to have a very strategic. A lot of the successful seed stock, registered operations have a very robust marketing plan. And since we have started that registered side, I would say I am 100% in charge of that. I am the CEO of marketing on our operation, which is fun because I really love it and I really enjoy it. So that is one of my bigger responsibilities on our operation is kind of that marketing, apparel, where are we showing up? How are we showing up? What's our brand? What's our website? All of that kind of side of the business. And then, we outsource to a bookkeeper. We work with the kind of, quote unquote CFO, or we try to. We have someone come that my husband meets with from a financial standpoint.
Like a fractional CFO who comes in kind of part-time or as needed. Yeah.
Yep. So, we have tossed around the idea. Another thing that's interesting, again, agriculture, you are, again, working with very monetary large businesses, but sometimes, unfortunately, families don't always treat them like a business. Again, it's more of a lifestyle. And sometimes you can't afford it either. Like you can't afford to have a CFO on payroll or whatever it is. So we've always talked about like, I wonder what it would look like to even start a business where, like 5 ranches own or pay for one, financial person together. So it's definitely a challenge, but we found someone that kind of is like a makeshift that works for us now. And I'm trying to think if we outsource anything else. We have someone who helps us. We have a kind of head of, I guess, like sales when we have our bull sale, which is a very big day for us financially. We have someone who is like head of, runs that for us and helps us throughout the year to make sure we're properly prepared for that day, which is a really integral position too for us. So
nice. I was reading on your website, there's Brent Thiel and Frederickson Ranch that you guys talk about, at least in regards with the big LT Chieftain.
Yeah.
Was that like a collab or a
so,
business partnership, or how does that?
So they are separate ranches. One is in South Dakota. Actually, both are in South Dakota now that I think about it. But yeah, we have partnered with them on some very big bulls. Again, just investing genetics into some people might be shocked, but bulls, like an animal, like a male bull, can cost up to $250,000 in some cases. I mean, you are talking very large monetary investment. Some bigger ranches can afford to make that investment themselves and maintain primary ownership of that animal, that bull, and all the genetics, the semen that come from it. But a lot of times, smaller operations, especially us, we fall under that quarter category of a small operation. You can't afford to make that, that purchase individually. And so a lot of times you will see operations joining together and be, trying to get the lead bull, and that way they can afford it. And then you kind of maintain partnership over it, and you can split the genetics from it and have all sorts of different arrangements.
Win,
So
win,
anyway,
win.
yeah, those were two very prominent ranches that thankfully wanted to kind of go into partnership with us on some different animals. And so, yeah.
Love, love. Okay, so that's the ranch side of it. That's one part of your life. You also have, like you said, you're the marketing arm for that, and you help on the ranch. And then you also do content creation for yourself, your own brand, and then also the podcast. So I want to break like social media, content creation, and then Discover Ag, the podcast, into like two separate categories. So like you said, you had kind of been doing both pharmacy and having a brand, a presence online, and you really built that up. You said, you were able to do some brand partnerships and get that going for you. Do you feel like there are any misconceptions about content creation out there that you want to like set straight, or anything that you've like heard and you're like, it's not that way?
I don't think anymore. I think now it is so commonplace that people have generally accepted influencing can be a very lucrative career. And not just that, but it can also be a very challenging, like there's a lot of work that goes into being an influencer, content creator. I think when I first started, that was not necessarily understood. I think there was a lot of assumptions about how you're spending your time, the ROI on it, as well as how much you're investing into this business, because that's what it is a business. And I think there was a lot of misconceptions and perceptions that were wrong about it at that time, but not in today's society anymore. I think we've come so long. And I mean, they're offering social media marketing courses in college now. It's just such a different world than when I entered into it. So I think for the most part now, I mean, some people probably have, different generations maybe have different questions or perceptions of it. But I think for the most people understand it's like a career path people are choosing now. And in order to be successful in it, which you can be, it requires a lot of work.
Yeah, and a lot of strategy, because I remember like talking to you early on back in the rural rooted days, like how you were talking about how strategic you were. And like I knew from right then you were super business minded, and it wasn't just a hobby, it wasn't just a side hustle. Like you were literally pouring your heart and soul into it.
Yeah, no, I knew. I mean, going back to the choice of me and my husband, are you going to remain a pharmacist or are you going to do this online?
Hmm.
I have to be a financial contributor to our family. So if I was going to step away from pharmacy, which is a professional career that pays, fairly decent, I knew I had to supplement that income somewhere. Like this wasn't like me dabbling in fun and just being like, oh, if I make some money, that's great. And if I don't, no harm, no foul. It was very much so if I'm going to do this, I need to replace my pharmacy income with the social media income. So yeah, I think from the beginning, I was very intent, very strategic, and I treated social media like a business because at the end of the day, I really needed it to pay me, pay
Yeah.
me like a business.
It was a job for sure. I don't know if you saw recently, Alex Bennett, she posted a reel and she said, like, at the beginning, like, hey, at the end of this, I'm going to tell you guys how much I make. And I think it's very interesting because I think a lot of people want to know how much content creators make. And I don't want to know. That'd be like someone saying, like, how much are your interior design contracts for, right? Which, of course, I wouldn't share. So I always try to think about it like that. But I do find it helpful, at least for me, when people put like ad when they're about to sell something or pitch something, because then I know this is paid for and it's not like a spur of the moment whim that someone wanted to share about. What are your thoughts on all of that?
Yeah, I mean, we have definitely as a society swung the pendulum of selling and influencing online very, very far. So I think, do I want to, like, as you stated, want to make sure, would I be mad if I knew an influencer had created a reel and maybe didn't use the right appropriate paid ad above or hashtag below or whatever?
I see what you're saying.
Do I look for that? Am I upset if they don't? No. I think for me at the most of the time, I just assume that people are sharing online. I guess the way to put it is it's very clear to me that people who aren't sharing for a business or money versus the people who are. And I
Yes,
think for the most part, I just then generally assume if you are sharing for a business strategy, you are going to be taking partnerships. And I should just, I guess, do my due diligence to make sure of what you're recommending is something I want to buy at the end of the day, still not just because you said so.
for
But I
sure.
think it's an interesting thing of where we have gone in today's society with, like, I kind of started this with, of how far we have taken influencing and selling and marketing on social media and really, turned it into that instead of what it was obviously originally intended for.
Yeah, interesting. And as you've grown, because you've grown substantially, have you ever like brought virtual assistants on or a management team or, signed with someone to help you maintain that marketing arm while you are spread so thin, growing your podcast, helping the ranch's marketing side, or is it still only you?
Different platforms I have brought on different people. So I have always maintained ownership of my Instagram. That's kind of like my home base, I guess, of different social media platforms. Just wouldn't I it would be hard for me to trust someone to take over my voice, my aesthetic, the way I want to show up, the content I want to create on that platform. And so I've never brought on help for that platform. As I've ebbed and flowed through different platforms and decided which ones are worth me showing up on, I have brought on assistants. So I'm on LinkedIn and I currently have someone who manages that for me. And our podcast, as always, we've ebbed and flowed through different outsourcing just because, again, I maintain kind of direction of it and part, I guess like visual strategy over it. But because I am so still involved in my own, it's very, very hard to do both. And so we have brought on different teams to help assist with the podcast social media side of it.
Nice. Awesome. Okay, well, let's leave general content creation and let's go into the podcast. So I like scrolled all the way back on your Apple podcast and the trailer came out April 7th, 2022. Do you celebrate that day? Is that like, you're like, yay, that's when we started. It's our anniversary.
Yeah, we try to. We try. And it's interesting because sometimes I feel as though, so we're coming up on our, what, 3 years? Yeah. We're coming up on our 3 anniversary. We actually launched a different podcast than the podcast we are. And so we kind of like, we have, I guess, two technically podiversaries. And it's funny because sometimes I feel like we're so young compared to some people. I'm like, gosh, we need to remind ourselves we're only gonna be a 3-year-old podcast, and there are people who are on 7, 10. I don't even know how long podcasting, right? And you can quickly look at where they're at and what they're doing with their podcast and wish that upon yourself. And you have to have that reminder of, the time you put in to maybe the time they put in. But on the same note, at the same hand, I'm like, gosh, we're been in this for a while. Like 3 years is kind of an achievement. And there's definitely new podcasts always coming onto the market. And there's definitely a lot of podcasts that started and never made it to the 3-year mark. So it's kind of a weird spot to be in because I don't know where we belong. I don't know if we're still a new podcast or if we've been
Mm.
like moved into the now like old podcast category.
Yeah, I don't know about new or old, but I think you're definitely established and
Yes, that's a good word.
interesting and you know what you're doing. Like you don't have your training wheels on. You know what I mean? Like you've been at it for a while, you're established, you're known, you're enjoyed. Like I think that's the words that more so come to mind rather than new versus old.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's probably the expansion of the vocabulary is probably needed there.
Yeah, well, and then I looked at your episode 1 was on July 14th, 2022, and in your show notes, I was like, "Oh my goodness, they came prepared. They came to rock." In your show notes, it said like, "Apply to our mastermind, sign up for our book club, sign up for our newsletter, our course, wait list for Elevate Ag, and then Elevate Your Story or elevateyouragstory.com, both your handles." And I'm like, "Wow, they came to play." What was your guys's like or like getting ready to launch your podcast rollout like? Because obviously you guys got a lot of things ready. It wasn't just like buying gear, picking a name, having a photo shoot, and like getting, your Libsyn, your Riverside, whatever. Like, what did that kind of like build up look like?
So, one thing about my personality is I am very much so a build your ship at sea kind of gal. I really do not stress, overplan, overthink. I've done, Enneagram, I've done human design, and all of them are point to me just being an idea person and then having to quickly put that idea into motion. If I have to wait too long between my idea and the initial steps to get that momentum going, it is very, very hard for me. Like, it is one of the worst feelings when I have to sit on something for an extended period of time. So I like to think, I have a vision of where I want to go. I know what I want to create. Do I have the business plan written to do that? Absolutely not. But I have a general direction of this is my idea. This is where I want to go with it. And I think this will do well. So when we launched the podcast, fortunately, my podcast co-host, we complement each other so well when it comes to being business partners. And it took us a while. It took her a while for her to get used to me vomiting ideas and her having to sort through them. But her personality is also very positioned to that, to kind of think, strategize, pick out what will work well, what won't, etc. So we've definitely gotten our groove as we become an established podcast. But going back to that initial start, it was very much so, we should launch a podcast. And about 10 days later, maybe we actually met up. She's in New Mexico. I'm in Nebraska. So we met up in Dallas, which is very easy for us to both get to. We rented a podcast studio because neither of us had the equipment. We didn't know what we were doing, but we knew we wanted to create it very quickly. So we're like, we'll just fly, we'll meet up, we'll record 10 episodes, we'll be sitting on them, we'll have time to figure it out. And so that is what it's so funny to think back. I'm like, we should do that again. That was really easy. Just like going to a podcast studio and having someone else do all the work.
Yeah.
But that's how we launched. We launched meeting up together
Cool.
and batch recording a crap ton of episodes and then just figuring it out from there.
That's awesome. Okay, so you said that you guys showed up. You're obviously the host of the podcast. So then the studio you're at was more so doing like the producing, editing, uploading, distributing, and then you guys posted to like socials to send traffic to the podcast. But then you have a website and a newsletter as well. So is that something that you guys are still doing or did from the beginning or outsourced, or how did those arms look?
Yeah, I worked with someone really great for us website, sorry. And I've always had someone build my websites for me. I really love beautifully well done things. So I understand and know, and my advice to a lot of people that are maybe if they don't want to invest the money into a website, you don't need a fancy website. I always say that, like, you don't need, the whole rigmarole. It doesn't have to have fancy drop down things and slidings and different, whatever it is. Like, you just need something basic to land on for your customer at the end of the day. But while I give that advice, I love to have a pretty website. So I have always outsourced that. It's been very important to me. If people land, for when it comes to our ranch, if they land on our ranch website, I do want to have a very good first impression. When they land on our podcast, YouTube series, a website, I want to make a very good first distinctive kind of wow factor impression. So I've always outsourced that. And then the newsletter, I've always
Hold on.
done.
How did you find your website producer? Are you like searching virtual assistant websites, or a friend of a friend recommended, or how do you find? Because when I started, I bought the Squarespace domain. I used a blank template because I want control. And I just like on the back end taught myself Squarespace and like designed my website, and I still do it. But I had a rebrand 2 years ago, which I've implemented into a lot of things as far as like colors, fonts, brand story, things like that. But and the next step with that lady is for me to hire her to like redo my website, but I haven't pulled the trigger on that yet. So I'm just wondering, where do you go to find your people to do your websites?
I honestly can't even remember how I found this girl. Again, going back to, you're like, how did we actually meet? How did I stumble upon her? I'm sure maybe she designed for someone and I came across it, or she popped up on my feed. I don't know. I've also headhunted in the sense of I've looked at other brands before, because I have used a couple different people for different projects, depending on if they're in the agriculture industry. I kind of have a go-to. For our podcast, we kind of went with more of like a pop culture kind of different vibe. So we actually used someone else. And I headhunted her based off another brand. And I just reached out to that brand and said, I really love your guys' branding. This is like kind of the vibe I'm looking for. Could you connect me with the person who's done it for you? And they did. So
Love that. Not being afraid
always
to
ask,
reach out.
guys. Just always ask it.
Yeah. Because the worst someone could say is like, no, I'm not sharing that information with you. But obviously it worked out.
Yeah. And that's not really not that big of a deal at the end of the day.
And then because newsletters are like super time consuming as well. Is that something that you outsource as well?
No, that's so funny you say that because Tara, my podcast co-host, always says that too. She's always like, I don't know how you whip it out so fast. Because we've talked again as we have grown with the podcast and wanted to continue to trim branches of where we're spending our time, how we're spending our time, how we're showing up. She's always been like, well, we could just outsource that. And I'm like, it takes me like 5 minutes. It's fine. It's not a big deal. I can just do the newsletter. So I don't know. There's something that I love. I love creating. I mean, that's why I fell in love with social media in the first place, was the creative outlet it was for me.
It's your
And as
archetype. You're
I
the
step back
creator.
in different areas, and I'm even creating less, on my personal page now. And as I hand over control for someone else to create for Discover, I find I still need an outlet for my creativity. And I've been, actually one of my goals for this past year was to funnel that back into real life. Like, it doesn't need to be on social media. You don't need to be, have all of your creativity be online. And so I was very intentional about finding projects and different passions to funnel that back into my everyday life. But no, I found that I still love creating something. And yeah, the newsletter for me, I just does not take very long. I just whip it out every month.
Nice. Nice. So, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you guys started out and you were like editing the podcast yourself and uploading it to all the things. And then I know you had recommended Jessie to me. So I know at some point she came along into your world, but then you guys signed with somebody like a media house. Tell us about that.
Yes. So we actually, from day one, never either of us wanted to take on editing. So that was one
Same.
thing that we quickly hired. Yeah. We were like, we will find the budget to make this work. We'll pay for it out of pocket if we have to. Like, neither of us want to sit down and learn editing. Not our forte, not where we want to spend our time. But yeah, again, as we have, grown the podcast and continued to love showing up in the podcasting space,
Mm-hmm.
it is important as a business owner, as all business owners know, in whatever industry, whatever capacity, you have to figure out where you want, to spend your time. And you also have to hit goals, and you also continue to want to grow and need support in other areas. And so, well, we did start out kind of with Jesse, just an independent kind of single, I would say like single business owner, editor, to wanting to graduate from that to maybe support where they could, manage brand partnerships for the podcast. Maybe they could support with production. Could they support with, just also, lining up interviews, all sorts of different things. And so for us, that kind of meant the next step, I guess, in positive world is going from someone like Jesse, who is maybe, individual management, to like a company, a media team that can support in all those different areas. And so we have ebbed and flowed through that too, as we've tried to find the right space, the right team to support us.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, it's always exciting because, there's possibility with, bringing on new people, but it's also been, as we haven't found the perfect space for us yet, there's obviously also been like frustrations. And so I think
Mm.
both my podcast and co-host and I are just looking forward to that day when we find that right team to support us and surround us.
Yeah. Shout out Tara, by the way. We need to say her name because I'm like, I've been so into the business questions. I haven't even said like, it's Natalie and Tara, the Discover Ag podcast. Super successful. I did a screenshot from your guys' website, and I don't know how often you update this, so this could be old. I mean, and plus your stats are always improving, but it said like 31,000 downloads per month, 75% retention rate, top 1% globally, 3K plus social followers, 5K plus email subscribers. Like, that's a lot to handle. That's a lot to keep up with. That's a lot of analytics to read. Like, what are people liking? What are they connecting with? What are they not connecting with? And then kind of adjusting your business strategy based on like what's hitting, right? So as you guys have been in business together and been like absolutely crushing the podcast game, like what have you learned and grown and pivoted as you guys have gone? And it kind of sounds like this, and the reason why I bring that up is because it kind of sounds like this like podcast management, or I don't even know what it's called. Like, what is it called? Like Dear Media is like a media house. Is that like the term for
Yeah, like
it?
a media company.
Yeah. So, I mean, it sounds like finding the right media company fit for you guys has kind of been one of those things.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's been one of our bigger goals, is to continue to grow. You just need support. And we also have an idea for like a sister portion of the podcast that is, video series out on the road. And I think if we're going to do that, we really need the support in a lot of different areas for it. And so, Tara and I have been obviously consistent with the podcast from the beginning, her and I, and it's just about filling in, the team around you now as we continue to grow.
Exactly. So who is on your team now? I mean, you and Tara, and then are you currently with a media house?
No, we just currently left one. And so we did hire though support as far as they're not technically like a media company, but they are like maybe a social media company, I guess. So
Yeah.
we hired someone to create all of our short form content to us, type all the show notes, do the titles, do the uploading, offlift that. So it isn't as all encompassing as a lot of media teams can be, from ranging from brand partnerships to managing interviews to kind of overall vision of the podcast. But we have found a team, I guess, for like the, in the weeds social media portion. So right
Good.
now it is Tara and I, and then that team managing all of the content.
Amazing. And were they the team that also helped you guys get that like driving billboard when you guys went to Vegas? Because that was pretty epic.
No. So one piece of thing that is I've always recommended and I've always implemented myself is investing in your business from the beginning. And whether that is hiring a business coach, whether that is taking a course, whether that, whatever that looks like in whatever world of business you're in, how can you invest in yourself so that you can start off on a stronger foundation, 10 steps ahead of where you would be if you just went into it blindly? So one thing Tara and I did, well, that must have been a year ago, year and a half ago now, is we hired just kind of a marketing coach, I guess, to meet with us to kind of, it was like a third person we brought in, and we would have meetings with her about, it was kind of in the middle of the podcast when we were deciding two different routes of where we would go, how we would show up. And I guess we were just kind of still trying to find a little clarity of our overall brand. And so we brought on this coach essentially, and we signed to work with her for like 6 months. And we went through a lot of different things as far as like nailing our message, our clarity, marketing, just a lot of different kind of things that we needed at that time. And she actually helped us set that up. We had told her that NFR was, it's kind of a huge Western culture moment. And we had said we'd want to be doing this rebrand. And so she kind of helped us create this idea and campaign and helped us unroll that at NFR as well.
So cool. Yeah, it's all about finding the right people. Okay, and then you briefly mentioned this, and I really saw it today when I was on your YouTube playlist. You mentioned the On the Road series, which is more like kind of a TV style production. You have your regular podcast, you have your interviews playlist, and then you have one behind the scenes vlog. And do you know what? I love a good vlog. I'm like, oh, I want to see Tara and Natalie do more of these vlogs. But I mean, obviously your time is so spread thin. Do you find that like you guys enjoy one of those the most, or one of them hits most with your audience? So obviously that's what makes the most sense with business, or kind of how do you decide where you sprinkle your time?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's maybe a phase we've been in the last 6 months is what's the overall big picture of this and how are we spending our day-to-day time to enable us to get there? And are we? Is there something we're doing that doesn't, that we need to, weed out or reevaluate, et cetera? And so the TV series, the YouTube series, has always kind of been that bigger ultimate goal for us. We love the
Yes.
podcasting space. We love to yap. It's a very fun, friendly, girly space to get together and just talk about relevant, trending, pop culture news and in Western culture and in agriculture. And so that is very fitting for us. And I feel like we have definitely dialed the podcast in now over the last 3 years of, we know what we're talking about, we know how we want to talk about it, and all of that has kind of been streamlined. But we knew to pair with the podcast, agriculture is so visual, right? It's just such a beautiful industry to capture visually. And so to just talk about it for us feels like we're doing such a short change of the possibility. And so we've always wanted to pair the podcast with like a visual component. And that's where the YouTube series comes from. And so, 2 years, 3 years ago, we went out and kind of filmed an initial pilot episode to see if we could kind of maybe get it picked up, maybe a more traditional route. And we just have kind of exhausted all possibilities, which actually aren't a lot considering we're just a dairy farmer and a rancher. So it's not like we have a ton of, like TV media connections, but
Yeah, I
we
feel
kind
you.
of did that behind the scenes of, meeting with different people, meeting with different production companies, pitching different production companies, etc., and kind of just never went anywhere with it. And so we thought that kind of, I don't know, I guess this summer sometime, we decided, well, why don't we just roll this out on YouTube? It's a very forward moving platform. A lot of people are actually going that route instead of traditional media anyways. And so we're kind of picking that ball back up and bringing back that TV series we're going to go out and film. We released the content we were sitting on because we always kept that private. We had never published it anywhere. So we're slowly releasing that. And then we're going to head out on the road and film some more episodes this fall. And we do the interviews to pair with that because, these
Mm.
videos are 12 minutes, 15 minutes of, almonds, cotton, sheep. But there's a whole interview that can pair with that. And to your point, there's a whole behind the scenes that can pair with it too. So as we do, more of these episodes, you will probably see more vlog behind the scenes kind of content that pairs with that, professionally shot 15-minute content that pairs with that hour-long video to sit down with the producer and have kind of a more grittier conversation about the realities of agriculture that you necessarily don't want to put in, a 12-minute, video on YouTube.
That's nice because then you're kind of getting a 2-for-1 or 3-for-1. You do the On the Road series, which is like TV-esque documentary style. Then you guys can have your interview. That's a second, podcast interview with the person that you're there for. And then if you do have time, you're doing behind the scenes vlog. That's 3-for-1. But I will say, from my experience, because when we wrap like a really big design project or one we're really proud of, we do hire like a production team, and it's a whole investment. It's a whole thing to get this type of video made, and that's a really next level leveling up, with everything. So is that like the ultimate goal, the ultimate direction that you guys are wanting to go?
Yeah, so when we shot cotton and almonds and sheep trail, we did hire a production team to shoot all of that. That is not any of us by any means. And yeah, that would be the ultimate goal would to be have I mean, we've self-funded to this point, so the ultimate goal would be to have investment from either brands or businesses or bigger partners into that for us to have that production team and have it be more routine and continuous of content that we are putting out for sure.
Yeah, so you did almond, you did cottons. Like, if you could like dream as high as the mountains, like what would be like the dream person? You're like, I want to talk to Kendall Jenner about 818 tequila, or like of all the things, like what would you be like, this would be so cool to do?
Yeah, it's actually not about a person. So it would be cool, Kendall Jenner, to sit down with you and talk to you about, the beginning steps to tequila and agave and like what goes into 818 tequila. But no, for us, it's actually about the product. And so when I think like dream big, we have done one in Montana just because it was, near my family and we knew that family. Sheep Trail was there and it was very beautiful. That's actually the one you can tell these are self-produced, and you can tell that two girls who have never had any media training self-produced these in the beginning because we just progressively got better. So cotton started out okay, almonds was short, a little bit better, but not long enough. And then Sheep Trail is getting there. We're getting closer. You can tell it was more dialed in, which makes us very
Interesting.
excited for what's
I
to
have
come
to
down the road.
disagree. I think you guys are
Oh, that's
made
so
for
funny.
TV. Like, I
Oh,
think
that's
you
so
guys
funny.
are shining. You are in your element. Like, you kind of light up. Like, I think you need to give your guys, you both you more credit, because I think this is like your shining moment. And I think you're doing
Well,
very
thank you.
well.
And
Yeah.
that's exciting to hear because it makes me very excited for the magic that could unfold this fall for us. But no, what I think is exciting to us is we big picture, we want to venture off to, South America to discover coffee and wherever it is to discover how the heck oysters get on your plate or lobsters or crabs. So our slogan is kind of like agriculture off the beaten path. And so many people think of, especially here in Nebraska, it's like you think of corn and cows, and it's like food is so beautiful and so versatile and diverse, and it just comes to us in the craziest ways. I mean, if you could see what a coffee plant looks like, it's crazy. Like all these different things. It's like, how does cinnamon bark? What's the bark of the tree look like? I want to know. Like, I want to scale a tree and I want to cut down
Yes.
the bark. And so it for me going back to even Amazing Race. It's like I want to bring this adventure component to
Yeah.
agriculture where we're out doing really cool things. I mean, that is where, and that's probably why you say like you light up. It's like that's where I feel so alive is when I am out in nature adventuring, and if I can pair that with my passion for storytelling and content creation and weave that all together, I would just be so content and fulfilled. And so yeah, it's less about the person and more about like what adventure can I go on that's really cool, showcasing like how someone actually raises food.
For sure. I love that. I understand it a lot better now. And to your point, the first time I ever saw a cacao plant or like
Yeah.
actual cacao being harvested was
Isn't it
on
crazy?
the amazing race. And I'm like, this is where chocolate comes from. If I would have walked by that tree or seen that, pot on the ground, I would have never thought this
Yeah.
equals dark chocolate down the road. So that's an
It's crazy.
amazing learning opportunity. And I just have to volunteer myself here. If you guys ever go to the Provence region of France to study the lavender fields, I will be your bag carrier. I will hold
I will
anything
take
you
you up
need
on
me to
that.
hold. Okay.
Hopefully by then I'm so, we've come so far that I need a bag carrier. And I'm like, you know what? Now it's your time to shine, Mrs. Miller.
Yes. Or maybe I'll just meet you guys there. I'll be
Love it.
antiquing. You'll be filming. We'll meet up for dinner and gelato and all the things.
Yes. Manifesting it now.
Yes, literally. I'm all about putting it out there. Okay. So before we end, and thank you so much for your time, I have just two quick things I want to talk about. Wrapping out the podcast series, I listen to a ton of podcasts. I want to know, since you have a super successful podcast, what are like two podcasts that you enjoy listening to out there? Because there are so many. Mine are opposite ends of the spectrum. For example, like I love the Aspire with Emma Grady that she's been doing, which is all about business. Obviously, she's like the mogul behind most of the Kardashian brands. And then I love
I'm
like
gonna have to
my
look that
like
one up. I've never listened to that one. I didn't hear of it.
my gosh, wait, you know who Emma Grady is, right?
I don't know.
She's like the business operator behind Skims. Like she does all of the actual
Yeah,
business and Kim
that's
like does the
crazy.
photo shoots and like
So it's
has fun
called
with it.
Aspire?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, it's Aspire by Emma Grady,
Okay.
Gredi. Yeah, Aspire with Emma Grady. She's amazing, and she's interviewed tons of like female
Yeah, there it
entrepreneurs, and
is.
like she's just constant. Like she just interviewed Jessica Alba and talked about like her launching, the Honest Co. and like
Yeah.
building that brand, and
So
it's great.
fun.
That's my like favorite, and then I also love the Purple Pants podcast by Bryce Isaiah when he specifically his like pit stop podcast, Purple Pants podcast, because he talks about the Amazing Race.
It's so funny.
But who do
I'm
you
just gonna
like?
give one podcast
Love it.
because I have ebbed and flowed. And so I feel like there are historically ones that I used to listen to at the beginning that were like very helpful to me. And so I feel like I could give a lot of different shout outs, but currently right now there is one that I routinely listen to. I never skip it. I always listen to it. And I actually think you would very much so be interested in it. So it's called The Daily Creative and it is by Todd Henry. And he basically melds, which is what I think I am. He melds a business component with a creative component to talk about how you can creatively be financially successful. And it's just, he does such a wonderful job. It's so interesting. I swear I'm always sending them to people to listen to. It is a podcast that I just think so many people would benefit from if you're in the creative space for sure.
Love that. Well,
Yes.
I will literally listen to that.
Yes.
Oh, so cool. Okay. And then the last thing that I wanted to say was two thank yous. One, thank you for just making time to come on this podcast because I know your
Well,
schedule is
thank you for having me
insane.
on.
Yes. And two, I also want to thank you. I don't know if you know this, but years ago when you did your campaign shoot with Boot Barn, you tagged Aisha. I started following her. Her and I connected on social, just designed their corporate headquarters, and
Yep.
the rest is history. And I would not have found her if you and Brittany hadn't done campaigns with her and tagged her and just opened me up to her creative genius. And that's what I love about social media is like you always meet new people and you're always sharing such inspiring things. And so I truly don't think I would have done that job had I not seen that on your page. So I just wanted to thank you for that connection as well.
That is so cool to hear. And yes, that is one of the very beautiful things about social media. If you're tuning into this, leverage that. It is insane to me that we are one step away, one relationship away from so many people that we used to never have access to before. I also feel that way about the podcasting space. Sometimes I'll be listening to someone being interviewed and I think, man, it is so crazy that I'm literally listening to this person being interviewed right now as if I am the third person in the room. Like that is so bizarre that we have such access. Obviously downfall sometimes, but major pro. So don't be afraid to leverage that. Reach out, ask someone for a connection, pitch yourself to someone, befriend, follow someone, create a relationship. It is such a gift to creatives, entrepreneurs, business owners. Social media can really do wonders for you if you are willing to seize that networking component of it, for sure.
For sure. Natalie, thank you so much for your time. And tell, in case one person isn't already, tell people where they can find you because I'm sure everyone knows you.
Well, if you're tuning into this, I'm guessing you're a podcast person. So please hop over to Discover Ag Podcast. We are a Thursday podcast. We're kind of like news. We cover the top 4 trending topics in Western culture and agriculture every week. So you see a reel that goes viral, a piece of content that goes viral, whatever platform it's on, we're probably covering it that week. And it's just a really fun kind of female millennial space to kind of hang out, learn a few things, but also have a lot of fun. So Discover Ag Podcast. And then you can find me on a couple different platforms under my name, Natalie Kovarik. Very simple, no fancy handles or anything.
And Tara Vander.
Yes, Tara Vanderdusen's my co-host, and then we are also Discover Ag Podcast is on platforms, YouTube, Instagram as well. Yeah,
I always get scared of butchering people's last names, so I get
Yeah.
really apprehensive to say it. Okay.
Big responsibility.
Yes, amazing. And I will also put your guys' website, Instagram handle, YouTube channel in the show notes as well. So if anyone needs to look down below and click, you should have the link to find her as well. So thank you so much and have a great rest of your day.
You too. Thanks for tuning in, everyone.
Thank you. Bye. Thanks so much for listening to the Details Podcast by The Heartland. If you enjoyed this episode, please follow along on Instagram at The Details Pod, subscribe on YouTube, and leave us a review. Turn on your notifications to hear new episodes every Monday. See you next week. Bye.